Admiral Park Yuna stood on the bridge of the starship Dawn of Terra and watched the alien station grow larger in the view screen. Helix Prime was massive, a spinning wheel of metal and light that could hold 1,000,000 beings. Today, it would hold humanity's future. She had waited her whole life for this moment. Humanity had finally built ships that could cross the stars. They had found other life in the universe. Now they came to join the galactic community as equals. Behind her fleet of 12 ships, Earth hung like a blue marble in the darkness. 4 billion people were watching through live broadcasts. 4 billion hearts were beating with hope. "Admiral," said Communications Officer Li Jiwu from her station, "Helix Prime is hailing us. They are ready to receive our delegation." Park Yuna nodded. "Tell Ambassador Kong we are cleared to dock." The docking procedure took 2 hours. Alien security teams scanned every human, every ship, every piece of equipment. They found nothing dangerous because humanity had brought nothing dangerous. They had come with gifts, scientific data, cultural exchanges, medical research. They had come with open hands. Ambassador Kong Doyan led the human delegation through corridors that seemed designed for giants. The Concord species were varied beyond imagination. The Vrel were insects standing 3 meters tall, their compound eyes reflecting light in rainbow patterns. The Mandari were living crystals that chimed when they moved. The Pelith floated in water-filled suits, their tentacles pressing against the glass. 12 species. 40,000 years of history, and they all looked at the humans like they were looking at dirt. The council chamber was a vast dome filled with floating platforms. Each Concord species had their own section. The humans were given a small platform at the very bottom, looking up at everyone else. The Vrel High Speaker rose from his throne. His voice was translated by machines into cold, flat words. "The creatures called humans have requested membership in the Galactic Concord. They will now present their case." Ambassador Kong stepped forward. He was 60 years old, a diplomat who had spent his entire career preparing for this moment. His voice was steady and warm. "Okay. Honored members of the Concord," he began. "Humanity comes before you not as conquerors or beggars, but as hopeful neighbors. We have only recently learned to travel between stars. We have so much to learn from your wisdom. And perhaps, in our own small way, we have something to offer in return." He spoke for an hour. He talked about human art, music, and literature. He talked about human science and the problems they had solved. He talked about human dreams of exploration and understanding. He talked about partnership, cooperation, and shared futures. When he finished, the chamber was silent. The Vrel High Speaker consulted with the other species through private channels. Minutes passed, then hours. The human delegation was told to wait in a holding area. 3 days they waited. Li Gu barely slept, monitoring every communication channel she could access. On the 3rd night, she caught something. A private transmission between council members, poorly encrypted. She decoded it with shaking hands. "The humans breed too fast," a Mondari voice said. "They adapt too quickly. Their history shows constant warfare. They are too dangerous to allow into the galaxy." "Then we cage them," a Vrel voice replied. "Quarantine their system. Let them rot in their own corner of space until they destroy themselves. It is the safest solution. And if they do not destroy themselves, then we destroy them. But that is a problem for future generations. For now, we simply close the door." Li Gu brought the recording to Admiral Park. The Admiral listened with a face of stone. Then she went to Ambassador Kong. "We should leave now," she said. "Before they announce their decision, we know what they will say." Kong shook his head. "We stay. We hear their words, and we remember them." The next morning, the council reconvened. The Vrel High Speaker delivered the verdict. "The Galactic Concord has deliberated on the matter of human membership. Our decision is final and unanimous." He paused, his compound eyes fixed on the small human platform below. "Humanity is denied membership. Furthermore, humanity is to be quarantined within their home system. A boundary will be established around their star. Any human vessel found beyond this boundary will be destroyed without warning. Any attempt to communicate with Concord species will be treated as an act of war. Ambassador Kong stepped forward. May I ask the reason for this decision? You are not ready, the High Speaker said. Perhaps you never will be. Return to your world. Be forgotten. This is our final word. The chamber erupted in sounds that might have been agreement or celebration. The human delegation stood in silence, surrounded by species who had just condemned them to eternal isolation. Admiral Park Yuna gathered her people. They walked back through the corridors of Helix Prime, past aliens who would not meet their eyes, past security teams who seemed almost relieved to see them go, as the Dawn of Terra undocked from the station. Li Jiwu played the intercepted transmission for the senior staff. They listened to alien voices discuss humanity like a disease to be contained. They are afraid of us, Park Yuna said quietly. They looked at us and saw something that scared them. Should we fight? Someone asked. With 12 ships against a 40,000-year-old empire, the Admiral shook her head. No, we go home. We tell Earth what happened, and then we decide what to do next. The fleet turned toward Seoul. Behind them, Helix Prime grew smaller until it was just another star among millions. Ambassador Kong Do-yan sat alone in his quarters, staring at nothing. He had spent his life preparing words of peace. Those words had been thrown back in his face. He opened a recording device. To whoever hears this in the future, he said, today, humanity was cast out. We were judged and found unworthy. They called us dangerous. They called us primitive. They said we would be forgotten. He paused. I do not know what will happen next. But I know this. Humanity does not forget. And humanity does not give up. Whatever comes, remember this day. Remember how they looked at us? Remember their fear. He stopped the recording. Earth grew larger in the view screens. 4 billion people were waiting for news. 4 billion people were about to learn that the universe had rejected them. But rejection, as humanity would prove, was not the same as defeat. And fear, as the Concorde would learn, was sometimes justified. The cage was built around Seoul. The door was closed, and humanity began to plan. 100 years had passed since the exile. The Concorde believed humanity was dying. Their sensors watched Sol System from a safe distance. They saw cities crumbling. They saw ships falling silent. They saw radio broadcasts growing fewer each year. The humans were doing exactly what the Council had predicted. They were destroying themselves in their cage. Director Cho Murray stood in the command center of Facility 7 and smiled at the latest Concorde surveillance report. Everything was going according to plan. They really believe it, she said to her staff. They think we are finished. Facility 7 was buried 3 kilometers beneath the surface of Mars. It was one of 47 hidden installations spread across the solar system. On the surface, Mars showed only the ruins of failed colonies. Below, 20 million people lived and worked in secret. The deception had taken decades to perfect. Every visible human activity was staged. The crumbling cities were empty shells, maintained just enough to look real from orbit. The declining radio signals were automated broadcasts. Carefully designed to suggest a civilization in collapse, the truth was something very different. Dr. Yoon Tae-yoon rushed into the command center with data tablets in both hands. At 73 years old, he was the lead physicist of the Prometheus division and the most important scientist alive. We did it, he said, barely able to contain his excitement. The dimensional fold worked. We sent a probe to Alpha Centauri and brought it back in under an hour. Director Cho took the data tablet and studied the readings. For 50 years, her predecessor had poured resources into this project. The Concorde had abandoned dimensional folding as impossible centuries ago. Their physics said it could not be done. Human physics disagreed. How soon can we build ships with this technology? She asked. We already started, Yoon said. The first prototype is ready for testing. If it works, we can have a fleet within 20 years. Cho nodded slowly. 20 years. Added to the 100 already passed, that meant their grandchildren would see the plan completed. That was acceptable. Humanity had learned patience in the asteroid belt. Hidden inside a hollowed rock called Station Hammer, General Baek Sujin reviewed her forces. 2,000 warships, each one built in secret over the past century. The Concorde thought humanity had lost the ability to reach their own moon. In reality, humanity had built an armada that could challenge any power in the galaxy. The ships were not copies of Concorde designs. They were better. Human engineers had studied every piece of alien technology they could find. They had taken it apart, understood it, and improved it. Concorde shields lasted seconds against human weapons in simulations. Concorde sensors could not detect human stealth ships, but ships alone would not be enough. General Baek knew this. The Concorde had millions of ships and thousands of years of experience. Humanity needed more than firepower. They needed friends. Navigator, on Yunbi, commanded the scout ship Silent Wind. For the past 3 years, she'd been slipping past the Concorde quarantine barrier using dimensional fold technology. The Concorde watched 4 ships traveling through normal space. They never imagined something could simply appear on the other side of their sensors. Her mission was simple: explore and report. The galaxy was vast beyond imagination, and it held secrets the Concorde did not want anyone to find. Yunbi found those secrets in the spaces between stars. The Turali were giants, 6-limbed beings with skin like gray stone. The Concorde had tried to exterminate them 8,000 years ago. The survivors hid in a nebula so dense that Concorde ships could not navigate it. They numbered only 40 million now, down from billions. The Kesh were a hive mind species, billions of small creatures sharing a single consciousness. The Concorde had enslaved them, using their natural manufacturing abilities to build goods. Millions of Kesh had escaped over the centuries, hiding in dead systems no one wanted. The Surui were beings of pure energy, beautiful and ancient. The Concorde had discovered they could be trapped in containment fields and used as power sources. Living batteries sold across the galaxy. Some Surui had escaped, existing as ghosts in the radiation of dying stars. Yunbi found them all. She found dozens of species, each one with the same story. The Concorde was not a community of equals. It was an empire of masters and slaves. Those who resisted were destroyed or driven into hiding. She brought her reports back to Earth. Director Cho read them with growing understanding. "They are not alone," she said. "The Concorde has enemies everywhere. Have victims everywhere," Yunbi corrected. "Victims who have been waiting for someone to help them fight back." The plan evolved. Humanity would not face the Concorde alone. They would build an alliance of the forgotten, the enslaved, and the hunted. They would turn the galaxy's victims into an army. Operation Silent Hand began. Human diplomats, traveling in ships that could not be detected, made contact with hidden civilizations. They offered technology. They offered hope. They offered something no one had offered in thousands of years. A chance to fight back. Director Cho grew old and passed command to her successor, Dr. Yoon, and saw dimensional fold technology installed in 1,000 ships before he died. General Baek trained 3 generations of officers before retiring. Through it all, Earth performed its role perfectly. The surface showed decay and collapse. Concorde observers wrote reports about humanity's slow extinction. No one suspected that beneath the mask. A new power was rising. 150 years after the exile, the preparations were nearly complete. The fleet numbered over 3,000 ships. The alliance included 47 species. Human technology had surpassed Concorde levels in almost every field. President Moon Jae, great-granddaughter of a woman who had watched the exile as a child, called her advisors together. "Our grandparents were cast out like garbage," she said. "Our parents built in secret. Our generation will finish what they started." She looked at the faces around her. Military leaders, scientists, diplomats, all of them carrying the weight of 150 years of patience. "How much longer?" she asked. 5 years, came the answer. "Maybe less." Moon Jae nodded. 5 years. Her grandmother had told her stories about the exile, about the shame and anger of that day, about Ambassador Kang Doyan, who had died still hoping for peace. "Send word to our allies," she said. "Tell them to prepare. The cage is about to open. Across the galaxy, in hidden bases and secret colonies, the message spread. Species who had waited centuries for this moment began their own preparations. The Concorde continued to watch Sol System. Their sensors showed the same slow decline they had observed for generations. Humanity was almost finished, they believed. They had never been more wrong. The quiet century was ending. The storm was about to begin. Commander Shin Hajun guided the Whisper through the Drift Nebula, a cloud of gas and dust so thick that light could not pass through it. Normal ships would be blind here. The Whisper was not a normal ship. Human sensors cut through the interference like it was not there. Human engines moved without leaving traces that Concorde technology could detect. Human dimensional fold drives meant they could escape any trap instantly. Hajun had been doing this work for 15 years, sneaking past Concorde patrols, making contact with hidden civilizations, building the alliance that would change everything. Today was the most important mission of his life. The Drift Nebula held a secret. Deep within its heart, protected by radiation and gravitational storms, was Station Unity. The station had been built in secret over the past decade. It was the first place in the galaxy where species from every corner of known space could meet safely. Hajun docked the Whisper and stepped into a corridor filled with beings he had never imagined. Torali warrior stood guard at the entrance, her gray skin covered in old scars. She nodded at Hajun as he passed. They had met before, during a mission to rescue Torali refugees from a Concorde slave transport. A group of Kesh scuttled along the walls, their small bodies moving in perfect coordination. They were just one fragment of the larger hive mind, but they carried the voice of billions. A Suori drifted past, a being of light contained in a portable field generator. Before humanity had given them this technology, Suzuri could not travel at all. Now, they could go anywhere. The main assembly chamber was vast, designed to hold representatives from dozens of species. Today it was nearly full. Ambassador Oneong waited at the central platform. She was young for her position, only 35 years old. But she carried a family legacy that stretched back to the exile itself. Her grandmother had been a junior diplomat on that first mission. Her mother had spent her life building secret alliances. Naong looked at the gathered species and felt the weight of history pressing down on her. "Thank you all for coming," she began. Her voice was translated simultaneously into dozens of languages. "Most of you have never met in person before. Your species have hidden separately for centuries, each one believing they were alone. Today, we prove that is not true." She gestured to the chamber around them. "This station was built by all of us together. Human engineers, Torali workers, Kesh manufacturers, Suori power systems. Every species here contributed something. This is what we can accomplish when we work as one," a Mondari representative rose. Unlike most of his species who served the Concorde loyally, this one had fled after witnessing atrocities he could not accept. His crystal body glowed with an angry red light. "Beautiful words," he said, "but the Concorde has millions of ships, thousands of worlds, 40,000 years of power. What can we do against that?" Nehong smiled. "Let me show you." The chamber lights dimmed. A holographic display appeared in the center of the room, showing the galaxy in perfect detail. "This is what the Concorde knows," Nehon said. The display showed Concorde space, vast and powerful, surrounding the tiny quarantine zone of Sol System. They believe they control everything that matters. They believe the species they conquered are broken. They believe humanity is dying. The display changed. New markers appeared across the galaxy. Hidden bases, secret fleets, populations the Concorde had written off as extinct. This is what actually exists. 47 species, over 10,000 ships, 200 hidden colonies, all connected through technology the Concorde cannot detect. The chamber erupted in surprised sounds. Even those who knew parts of the network had not seen the full picture before. "The Concorde does not know we exist," Nehun continued. "They do not know humanity survived. They do not know you survived. And when we reveal ourselves, We will do it with enough force that they cannot ignore us. The Terali representative stepped forward. And then what? Do we destroy them? Do we become the new Concord? Nyang shook her head. No, that is not what humanity wants. That is not why we built this alliance. She paused, choosing her words carefully. The Concord cast humanity out because they feared what we might become. They were right to fear us. We became something they never expected. Not conquerors. Not destroyers. We became the ones who remember every species the Concord enslaved. We remember every world they burned. We remember every life they took. And we offer something they never did, choice. When we face the Concord, we will not demand their destruction. We will demand their surrender. And then we will build something new. A true community of equals. No masters. No slaves. Everyone free to choose their own path. The chamber was silent. Then, slowly, sounds of agreement began to spread. Different languages, different voices, but the same message: hope far away in Concord space. An investigator named Sereth was getting worried. She was Pelith, an aquatic species that had served the Concord faithfully for millennia. Her job was to find problems before they became crises, and she was seeing problems everywhere. Slave shipments had been disappearing. Not many, but enough to notice. Trade routes showed strange gaps in their records. Colonies on the edge of Concord space reported unusual sensor readings that vanished before they could be investigated. Someone was operating in Concord territory. Someone with technology that should not exist. Sereth followed the trail for months. She interviewed witnesses. She analyzed data. She chased ghosts across a dozen systems. Finally, she intercepted a transmission. It was heavily encrypted, but Pelith codebreakers were the best in the Concord. The message was short. The language was unknown. But the translation made Sereth's blood run cold. We remember. We are coming. She brought her findings to the Concord Council. They listened with growing unease. Impossible, the Vrelhai speaker said. There is no one left to oppose us. We destroyed our enemies long ago. Then who sent this message? Sereth asked. Who is using technology we cannot detect? Who is freeing our slaves and hiding from our sensors? No one had an answer. In the Drift Nebula, the Alliance completed its final preparations. Ships that had never flown together practiced formations. Species that had never worked together learned to trust each other. Commander Shin Hajun watched from the Whispers Bridge and felt something he had not felt in years. Hope. How long? His first officer asked. Hajun checked his orders. The final message from Earth had arrived that morning. 6 months, he said. In 6 months, we show them what we have become. The Shadow Network was ready. The forgotten children of the galaxy were about to step into the light. The Concord Council was in session when the alarms began. Helix Prime had stood for 30,000 years. It had survived wars, plagues, and the rise and fall of empires. Its sensors could detect a ship from 1,000 light-years away. Its weapons could destroy a fleet before it came within range. The sensors detected nothing. The weapons had no targets. And yet ships were appearing, not approaching, appearing out of nothing. Fleet Admiral Park. Unitu stood on the bridge of the dreadnought, Remembrance, and watched her fleet materialize around Helix Prime. She bore the name of her great-grandmother, the admiral who had led humanity to its exile 2 centuries ago. Today, she would finish what her ancestor had started. All ships report ready, her tactical officer announced. The station is surrounded. Yuna looked at the display. 3,000 human warships, 2,000 Terali battlecruisers, 1,500 cash manufacturing vessels, each one capable of building weapons in real time during combat. 500 Suuri energy platforms, their living cores burning with power that could crack planets, and more. Ships from 40 different species, united under a single command. The largest fleet the galaxy had ever seen. Against them, Helix Prime had its defense force of 200 ships. They were already scrambling to launch, but they were hopelessly outnumbered. Admiral, the communications officer said, The Concord is hailing us. They demand to know who we are. Una smiled. Open a channel. Let them see. She activated her broadcast. Her face appeared on every screen in Helix Prime, on every ship in the Concord Defense Fleet, on every world that received Concord transmissions. My name is Park Una 2. I am human. 200 years ago, you cast my people out. You called us primitives? You said we would be forgotten. She let the words hang in silence. You were wrong. Concord Defense Fleet was launching now. 200 ships against 7,000. Their commanders knew they could not win. They launched anyway because they had no other choice. All ships, Una ordered. Disable. Do not destroy. I want prisoners, not corpses. The battle lasted 14 minutes. Human weapons sliced through Concord's shields like they were not there. Tyrrell warships crashed through enemy formations with brutal efficiency. Kesh vessels deployed boarding drones that seized Concord ships intact. Suri platforms drained power from enemy reactors, leaving crews alive but helpless. When it was over, the Concord Defense Fleet drifted in space, disabled but not destroyed. Their crews watched through view screens as the Allied fleet took position around their station. Inside Helix Prime, panic was spreading. The council chamber was in chaos. Representatives of 12 species were screaming at each other, demanding answers that no one had. The Vrel High Speaker tried to restore order. We must fight. We must call for reinforcements. Reinforcements from where? A Mandri representative demanded. Did you see how fast they destroyed our fleet? They used technology that should not exist. They are humans, Investigator Sareth said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. The extinct species, the ones we caged. They survived, and they brought friends. Before anyone could respond, the main view screen activated. A new face appeared, a human face. Ambassador Kong Doyon III looked at the council with calm eyes. His great-grandfather had stood in this same chamber, begging for acceptance. He would not beg. 200 years ago, he began, you cast humanity out. You called us dangerous. You called us primitive. You said we would be forgotten. We were not forgotten. We were freed. Freed from your rules. Freed from your limitations. Freed to become what you feared. But we did not become conquerors. We became liberators. He paused, letting his words echo through the chamber. The species you enslaved stand with us. The Tarali, who you tried to exterminate. The Kesh, who you used as slaves. The Suri, who you sold as power sources. Dozens more, all with stories of Concord cruelty. They remember what you did, and they are here. The view screen split, showing representatives of every allied species. Tarali warriors. Kesh hive speakers. Suri energy beings. Former slaves and survivors of genocide, all standing together. You have 1 hour, Kong said. In that hour, you will surrender all military vessels to our control. You will dissolve the Concord Council. You will release every slave, every prisoner, every being held against their will. If you do not, we will do it for you, and we will not be gentle. The transmission ended. The council sat in stunned silence. 1 hour. The Vrel High Speaker was the first to speak. We cannot surrender. The Concord has stood for 40,000 years. We will not end it because of threats from primitives. Primitives, who just destroyed our fleet in minutes, someone replied. Primitives with technology we cannot understand. Primitives who united every enemy we ever made. The debate raged. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to negotiate. Some wanted to flee. General Biksu Jin, too, monitored the arguments from the remembrance. She was the granddaughter of the woman who had built humanity's secret fleet. Her whole life had been building toward this moment. They are frightened, she observed. Good. Frightened enemies make mistakes. And if they choose to fight? Admiral Park asked. Sujin's expression hardened. Then we show them what frightened humans can do. Hour passed. The council could not agree. The Vrel High Speaker sent a message demanding negotiations. extensions, compromises. Admiral Park's response was simple. You had 200 years to negotiate. We spent them preparing. This is not a negotiation. This is a notice. She gave the order. The Allied fleet moved. Not to attack, but to surround. Every Concord military installation, every command center, every weapons platform was covered by Allied ships. The message was clear. Resistance was possible, but survival was not. The Concord High Command watched their tactical displays and understood. They could fight. They would lose. Every ship, every station, every military asset they had was now within range of weapons they could not stop. Slowly, reluctantly, Concord ships began to power down their weapons. Stations lowered their shields. The fight went out of them, not because they were destroyed, but because they saw they could not win. The Vrel High Speaker sent the final message himself. His voice was bitter, broken. The Galactic Concord surrenders. What are your terms? Admiral Park looked at the message. She thought of her great-grandmother, who had led the fleet home in shame 2 centuries ago. She thought of Ambassador Kong's ancestor, who had begged for acceptance and been thrown away. Terms will be delivered by our diplomatic corps, she replied. For now, you will hold position and await instructions. Any attempt to resist will be met with appropriate force. She closed the channel and looked at her crew. Human faces, Turali faces, Kesh sensors, Suari light forms. The bridge of the remembrance held beings from a dozen species, all working together. We did it, her first officer said softly. Yuna nodded. The first part. The hard work begins now. Outside, the stars shone cold and bright. The Galactic Concord, 40,000 years of domination, had just ended. Not with destruction, but with surrender. Humanity had been cast out. They had built an empire of allies, and nothing would ever be the same again. 10 years had passed since the revelation. The galaxy was healing, but scars remained. Chancellor Yun Sumain walked through the halls of the Galactic Assembly, the building that had replaced the old Concord Council Chamber. Where once 12 species had ruled over all others, now over 100 had equal voice. She stopped at a window and looked out at Helix Prime. The station had changed. New sections had been added, designed by species who had never been allowed to build here before. Turali architecture rose alongside human designs. Kesh structures crawled across surfaces in organic patterns. Suari light gardens glowed in spaces that had once been dark. It was beautiful. It was also fragile, Chancellor Inade said, approaching with a tablet. The Vrel delegation has submitted another complaint about the tribunal proceedings. Sumin sighed. The tribunals had been running for 5 years now. Former Concord leaders who had committed atrocities faced justice. Those who had simply served were offered amnesty and a chance to join the new order. Some accepted. Some refused. The Vrel, in particular, struggled with no longer being masters of the galaxy. Tell them we will review their concerns, she said. But the tribunals will continue. Aide nodded and left. Dr. Han Yunbi waited in a conference room nearby. She was old now, past 90, but her mind was still sharp. She had spent 60 years exploring the galaxy for humanity. Now she led the Coalition Science Initiative, sharing human technology with anyone who wanted it. Chancellor, she said as Sumin entered. The latest distribution reports. Dimensional fold technology is now available to 73 species. Medical advances have doubled average lifespans for 42 species. Agricultural improvements have ended food shortages on over 200 worlds. Sumin took the reports. And the resistance? Yunbi's expression darkened. Still active? The Concord Restoration Front attacked 3 colonies last month. 12 dead, hundreds wounded. The Restoration Front, loyalists who refused to accept the new order. They had ships, resources, and support from those who preferred the old ways. We will handle them, Sumin said. As we have handled everything else, Captain Shinyori commanded the patrol vessel Horizon. Her father had been Commander Shinha Jun, one of the heroes of the Shadow Network. She had grown up hearing stories of the Quiet Century, the Hidden Alliance, the Great Revelation. Now she flew the frontier. Protecting colonies that had never known protection before, her crew was deliberately mixed. Human officers served alongside Turali warriors, Kesh technicians, and former Concord species who had chosen to join the coalition. They did not always understand each other. They were learning. "Captain," her sensor officer called out. "Distress signal from Calvar colony. They are under attack." Yuri checked the tactical display. Calvar was a small settlement, mostly former slaves who had been freed after the revelation. They had nothing worth stealing. That meant the attackers wanted something else. "Set course for Calvar," she ordered. "Maximum speed." The horizon dropped out of fold space above the colony 20 minutes later. Below, smoke rose from damaged buildings. A single ship hovered over the settlement, its weapons trained on the survivors. "Concord Restoration Front," her tactical officer reported. "One converted patrol vessel. They are holding approximately 50 civilians hostage." Yuri studied the situation. She could destroy the enemy ship easily, but the civilians would die first. "Open a channel," she said. The view screen flickered. A Mandari face appeared, crystal features glowing with angry light. "Coalition vessel," the Mandari said. "Stay back, or we will kill the hostages." Yuri kept her voice calm. "What do you want?" "We want the restoration of proper order. We want the Concord returned to power. We want the primitives who destroyed our civilization to face justice." Yuri nodded slowly. "I understand. You lost everything when the old order fell. We lost our place in the universe. We were rulers. Now we are nothing." "You were never rulers," Yuri said. "You were servants. The Concord used you just like it used everyone else. You just did not see it because you were higher in the chain." The Mondera's glow flickered. "Lies. 200 years ago, my ancestors' people were cast out. They were told they would be forgotten. Do you know what they did? Silence. They could have built weapons of revenge. They could have planned the destruction of everyone who hurt them. Instead, they looked around and saw that they were not alone. They found other species who had been hurt by the Concord. They built friendships, not armies. When they finally revealed themselves, they did not come to destroy. They came to free." Yuri leaned forward. "You will lose. Your ship will be destroyed, your crew will die, and nothing will change. Or you can put down your weapons and talk. Tell us what you need. Tell us what you fear. Maybe we can help." The Mondari stared at her through the screen. "Why would you help us? We attacked your colonies. We killed your people, because that is what the new galaxy means," Yuri said. "Not revenge. Not domination. Choice. You can choose to be our enemy, or you can choose to be something else." Long minutes passed. The hostages waited below, terrified. The Horizon's weapons remained locked on target. Finally, the Mondari's glow shifted from angry red to something softer. "We surrender." Yuri released a breath she had not realized she was holding. "Stand down your weapons. We will take you into custody and arrange for legal representation. The hostages will receive medical care." The crisis ended without another shot fired. Another small victory in a galaxy full of old wounds. On the anniversary of the revelation, Chancellor Yoon Soo-min addressed the Galactic Assembly. Representatives from over 100 species filled the chamber. Former enemies sat beside former slaves. Ancient hatreds simmered beneath careful diplomacy. Progress was slow and painful, but it was progress. 10 years ago, Soo-min began. The galaxy changed forever. A species that had been cast out returned. They brought with them allies from every corner of known space. Together we ended an empire that had stood for 40,000 years. She looked at the gathered representatives, human and alien, friend and former foe. They cast us out because they feared what we might become. They were right to fear, but they were wrong about what we would become. They expected conquerors. We chose to become builders. This assembly is not humanity's empire. It is everyone's future. We built it together, from exile and oppression. Every species here contributed something. Every voice here matters." She paused. "We are not perfect. We make mistakes. We fail to understand each other. Old wounds still bleed, but we try. Every day, we try to be better than we were. 200 years ago, a human ambassador begged for acceptance. He was thrown away. Today I do not beg. I do not demand. I simply remind you of a truth we proved together. We are stronger together than we ever were apart, and nothing will ever change that again. The assembly rose. Human and alien voices joined in applause. It was not perfect harmony. There were still those who grumbled, those who plotted, those who dreamed of the old ways, but they were fewer every year. Outside, the stars burned bright against the darkness. The galaxy that had cast humanity out now stood with them. The cage that was meant to kill them had become the forge that made them strong. They had been exiled. They had built in silence. They had risen in unity, and nothing was ever the same again.